We're live! Oh my God. This is actually really funny, right? So we're using this platform called StreamYard. And so, we can basically pre-schedule these shows. So I scheduled it for Sunday, the 22nd at 5 p.m. And then it says, "We are sorry, you are scheduled to go live on Sunday, the 22nd at 5 p.m., but you cannot go live now." And I'm like, but it is the 22nd at 5 p.m. Viv, what have I done?
Oh God, I love it. I love it. But this is cool because this is how we start our lives. We're always giggling. I mean, what a great welcome. So many people are not happy in their lives at the moment. I mean, who knows what joy that's contributing to the world?
Exactly.
It
Oh my
tickles
God,
my
this
funny
is
bone.
really
Anyway,
funny.
yeah. Because
Maybe
there's no bloody rhyme or reason. It's like, are we going live? No, you're not allowed to go live, even though it says you're scheduled. Good job we're able to change in 10-second increments. Hey.
Oh my goodness. Well, actually, what I'm just realizing, maybe it's a week later and I did just get the date wrong. Whatever it might be, Viv,
Who
I'm
knows?
sure it's
Anyway,
my fault.
Luckily for you, you could just hit live and here we are. So good morning and good afternoon and hello everybody joining my wonderful friend Susie Godsey and I for our conversation today. Is human food bad for dogs? What do you know, Susie Godsey?
Yes, it's terrible for dogs. No, actually, I have a really fun story about this. So when I grew up, we had a Bernese mountain dog, and they're like a similar type dog to like a Bernese. What are the ones called that go out in the Alps and save people?
Like a
Saint Bernard.
Yeah.
They're like from a similar. They're from Switzerland, but they have a similar stance. So they're big dogs, and our dog was pretty much our house pig. I swear to God. I mean, it was hilarious. We all day long, any food scraps we had left over was going in his bowl. He had this huge bowl sitting there on the ground. And during the day, he was basically he was in a different area of the property because my stepdad had clients coming, and so he couldn't mingle. So he was in a certain area. And then once everybody was gone, we would close all the gates and he would come out, and that was his feeding time. So there was this big bowl, right, full of food scraps, literally. And so he would race out of his enclosure, race, because he knew there was this food bowl, and he would eat the whole thing. But he also would get tripe. We would feed him tripe. We would actually go to the slaughterhouse and we would buy tripe, and we would get muscle meat from the cows and stuff. So he would get that too, but he was our house pig. And it never occurred to us that this might be bad for the dog, And he got older than any one of his kind should have gotten. Like the most of his family, like he was a bred dog, and so we knew his dad and his mom and blah blah blah. But everybody died when they were between 8 and 10. He died at 14.
Wow. Wow.
And we just had no point of view. To us, it was like, oh, the dog will eat it, And he ate lettuce. He ate cherries. I'm sure we gave him chocolate cake. I'm sorry. I mean, he just ate any leftovers. Any.
Yeah, it's incredible how when you have that level of communion or even awareness or some kind of connection and understanding of your animal, especially dogs, what they will and won't eat and what they can and can't eat, because there seems to be a lot of, it's a lot of these mythbusters that are out there. I'm still wiping my tears away from laughing, by the way. With the StreamYard. Anyway, as to what's good and what's bad, and this is one of the leverage points that any good marketing company will use with, selling their snacks or treats or food or kibble or biscuits or whatever it is for their animals. So when you have that level of awareness, or even like you said, well, we didn't know, but I would suspect on one level you did with the animal, that I've had dogs that have climbed on top of hot stoves and eaten the tinfoil and lasagnas, you know, at the very back of a massive big stove in a big kitchen, commercial kitchen. This Labrador jumped up and ate the whole lasagna, and it was a lasagna for like 20 people and the tinfoil. No problem. The dog was fine, you know. So, but yeah, there is obviously a level of awareness required with each individual animal and each individual animal's constitution, because I know the dog that I have at the moment, the greyhound that I have at the moment, she's more like feeding a cat. She will walk away from food. She'll sniff it and snuffle around the bowl and maybe pick out one or two pieces and walk away. She knows exactly what her body needs and what it doesn't, and what she will and won't eat. And yet you've got the other extreme. I'm thinking of Winston, this beautiful chocolate lab that ate all the lasagna. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because, you know, in all seriousness, Viv, aren't there foods that are bad for dog? You know, what about chocolate? And, you know, so this is actually the part where it's very interesting because I have spent, you know, a few times in the emergency room with my pets over the years. And there's inevitably always one of those pets that comes in that ate like all the chocolate, you know, and people are worried their dog is going to die. And so far, I personally have not met anybody whose dog died from eating too much chocolate. And I do actually get that if your dog would eat, for example, I don't even know exactly what it is in cacao that is so bad for dogs, apparently. But to be honest, hey, if your dog eats like a strip of chocolate, I can probably tell you nothing will happen. And if your dog is very sensitive to something and, you know, might eat something else, it might die from it. It's just one of those things where you have to really be aware of what is going on, what are you dealing with, and ask a question. You know, and I find the question in those moments is so important. You know, when your dog does eat something that is really, you're like, oh God, you know, my dog just ate all this stuff. Is it going to die? Ask the body of the dog. Do you need to go to the emergency room? Are you dying? You know, do I have to induce vomiting for you? What's required? You know, do I give you charcoal? What is required? What's required to make this be easy? And basically, that in itself can be such a lifesaver, you know, and can save you so much stress and angst for having to rush to the emergency room to find out, you know, $800 later that your dog is just fine and would have just digested all this with ease. So, you know, and I'm not trying to make light of it, please, guys. You know, this is not about, I'm not making fun of the dogs that did actually die from eating something that wasn't supposed to be eaten by them. I just sometimes feel like you said, Viv, you know, there's so much hype on certain things. And I sometimes really wonder, like, well, what is truly a deadly amount of chocolate for a dog? You know? Because when you Google that, you're going to get a million different responses. And but my experience so far has been that I've met many dogs that ate way too much chocolate and did just fine.
Another story, I've got a very dear friend who's a vet, and, you know, she's very, excuse me, very scientifically, very medically minded. And we have some great conversations, not from right or wrong, but we kind of have these conversations where we kind of just bounce off each other, and I draw on her veterinary experience and she draws on what my experiences have been with animals. And she was telling me the most incredible stories about things that she's pulled out of dogs' guts, like golf balls and corn cobs and socks and, you know, children's toys and the most insane things that, you know, this isn't even food, but they've taken it upon themselves to eat it for whatever purpose. So, you know, like you say, Susie, we're not making light of this, because I know there will be people watching this that maybe they have had a traumatic experience with an animal eating something. But, you know, when we talk particularly about food, a lot of people feed tidbits, you know, from the table or the end of the leg of ham at Christmas, or, you know, whatever's left over. And it's just having that awareness of, is your dog's body able to metabolize it? Is it, not the word, digest it? You know, is your dog's body? And I love that you put that question in there, because people tend to lump the whole thing. You've got the animal, the being, and then you've got their body. And often when we're emotionally triggered, if your animal's starting to vomit or dry reach, or, you know, it's eating grass, or its, you know, its stomach's making noises, it's a real challenge to not get into that emotional reaction of panic and the worst case scenario. And to be able to have that gift of asking a question in that moment and asking the animal's body is a major. And I do want to reiterate this without making it significant, but to ask the animal's body, okay, do you require the vet? Do you require to go to the emergency room? Because it's the body that is going to be dealing with whatever the food is, you know, not the being. So, and this is one of the things I love about the conversations we have with Talk to the Animals, where you're able to direct the question and get a much clearer response, rather than all of the head stuff and the panic and the fear and all the emotional charge that often hijacks and talks over the top of your awareness. So, and that's, you know, that's a muscle to build, to be able to get to that place of asking the question and receiving the awareness. So have you had any situation like this with Charlie, Susie, over the years?
No, actually, never with food. I have not had a. I mean, gosh, Charlie has had his own fair share of food issues with his body. When I first got him, he was regurgitating his food all the time. And regurgitating is a little bit different from throwing up because there's no heaving. So regurgitation is pretty much just open the mouth and blah, you know, and out comes the food. And he would regurgitate sometimes 3-4 hours after food time, and the food would come out untouched, like it would look like it hadn't even been digested at all. So there was obviously a lot of, you know, what is this kind of deal going on, and I went to the vet with him a lot for that. And so in the end, it was about it being an inflamed duodenum, which is the exit of the stomach. So basically, the inflammation would not allow the food to leave the stomach, but also, obviously, you know, there was some other stuff going on that the food wouldn't even really be digested. And so, you know, there was a lot of, let's put him on meds and all that, which I refused to do. And I've had quite a few years of really looking at how do I change this for him for good. So it's not about let's suppress it with some medication, but actually let's find out what is triggering that. And so this has been a big journey. And so for Charlie, it's always been a bit like, hey, I can't feed him this and I can't feed him that. You know, he doesn't get chicken, he doesn't get fish, he doesn't get certain things that I over the years discovered just won't sit well with him. But interestingly, I did actually for a while do a full-on reset for his body to just even find out what he was reacting to. And that reset I did with vegetables. So for about a month or two, I think it was 2 months, I was feeding him solely vegetables that I had pureed and cooked. And so can you imagine? And you might think, and your dog ate that? Yeah, because I'm sure he was hungry and he would just eat anything at that point. But he was eating just pureed vegetables for 2 months. But that really gave an awareness afterwards. I could start introducing certain proteins and could really see what was making him react, because the vegetables didn't. You know, he was digesting them. So, yeah.
So with that, Susie, so say you fed him chicken, say you didn't know that chicken was creating an inflammation or a reaction in his body, and then you introduced chicken to him. How soon did you see a change in him, or how soon did you see the signs that, okay, chicken's a no-no?
Oh, within a day. Like
right
away. I mean, his reaction was pretty much right away. So it was easy. You know, you could see that, oh, that didn't work. And then you obviously don't just try the next thing, but you then have to give it a rest again and make sure everything goes back to normal. And then you try another protein and see what happens.
So would he regurgitate? Is that the obvious symptom that you would see?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You know, it fascinates me too, because I think this is something else we maybe overlook and underestimate a lot is the wisdom of our bodies, but also of animals' bodies. You know, I mean, they've lived in the wild for so long and for centuries and centuries and decades and centuries, you know, and eons, and they're still here. So even if they have eaten raw bones, because raw bones is always, you know, a contention with people too. You know, yes, you do, no, you don't. You feed them cooked bones, you feed them raw bones. It's like animals have been eating, you know, they're scavengers. Basically, dogs are scavengers. If they're left to their own devices, they get all sorts. They get a whole mixture of, you know, whatever they can find out in the wild to eat. And it's interesting watching wild dogs in regards to if they kill an animal, what they will eat first, you know, what their preference is and what's left. Because obviously, if they're in a pack, top dog gets to eat first picks, you know, and so it goes down the food chain until the last of the pack gets to eat the leftovers and whatever's left. But where I was going with the wisdom of their body, what I've seen with a number of dogs is sometimes I've given chicken necks to dogs that just gulp them. And sometimes, you know, those little cartilage bits just sit. They must just digest everything else. But when they vomited, there's a bit of grass and a bit of yellow bile or whatever it is that comes up. But there's these solid chunks of maybe the cartilage or bone or whatever it is. How brilliant is their body to be able to filter the parts that the body requires and compartmentalize or store or, you know, try and keep secure the part that the body knows is not going to be, you know, easy to digest, and it will vomit that back up. So there's a lot of wisdom that our bodies have, and animal bodies particularly, in regards to how they do try and their body tries to facilitate them if they have eaten something that doesn't agree with them. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And, you know, and I think we also have to recognize that today there's a lot of conversations about, you know, food sensitivities in people, but also in our animals. And there are a lot of animals that have allergies. There are a lot of animals that have, you know, I know when I was in Australia, it was called the Brisbane itch. You know, in California, they called it the California itch. And on the East Coast, it's the New York itch, because they don't actually know what is making the animals itch. And so it's just called this mystery name. But a lot of animals chew on their feet or lick excessively, and all kinds of things. So there are things that we need to be aware of. You know, the environment has changed. It's different than it was 100 years ago. There's way more toxins everywhere in our food and the environment and our clothing and everything. And so, you know, we have to be aware that our animals are basically subject to that too, you know, and even wild animals are starting to have some symptoms of, for example, you know, we have so much microplastics now all over, and depending on where an animal in the wild is in the food chain, but usually the higher up, the more susceptible to those environmental toxins they are too. So, you know, there's a lot more to this than just, oh, can my dog eat the occasional thing that I'm dropping off the table, you know, and is this bad for my dog to eat off the table or eat the table scraps? And this is something that only you can really look at for yourself. For me personally, there's also that part, like, I don't like a dog that's begging for my food while I'm eating. This is one of the things that I cannot stand. You know, a dog that's sitting there and staring at you and drooling like, are you gonna give me something? I really want your food. Can you?
Yeah.
Will you? Can I? Please? You know.
Yeah.
Oh God, this is. You know, talk about an allergic reaction. I think I have an allergic reaction to that, and so, you know, my dogs do not get any food off my table. There is absolutely no begging. I don't tolerate it, and so they don't, and they know that they will never get any food from me. But do they sometimes get something that I have left over? Yeah, but they're gonna get it in their bowl, and they're gonna get it when it's time to feed them. You know, or they get a treat every now and again, but it's not ever from the table. So, but again, you know, please, guys, this is something that you have to. It's your living together, you know, and you need to make those choices that work for both you and your dog, and you have to know what works. Like we've said, you know, be in tune and in touch with your dog's body. But dogs have, I think it's 10 times the amount of stomach acid that we have. And so they can really digest a lot of things that we cannot. And, in so many ways, dogs are
Mm,
able to break down things that our bodies would not be able to break down. And so, like we've said earlier, they are scavengers. If they were out to their own devices, they would be running around eating trash, eating animals that have died days ago, and all of that stuff. So all the stuff that we would get sick,
mm,
I mean, really sick if we ate that, and the dog will just eat it and absolutely no problem whatsoever. So yes, and yes, are there foods that maybe aren't that great for them? I'm sure there are. And
mm.
please, guys, there is a difference if you put a bowl of grapes down and your dog eats the whole bowl of grapes to getting a grape. There's a difference there. And please be aware when you're hearing these things like, oh, grapes are bad for dogs, chocolate is bad for dogs. Have a look at, like, okay, yes, okay, cool, good to know. And how much is really dangerous? How much?
Mm. So also there's a lady in the chat saying she never thought a dog being allergic to chicken. It's like, well, every animal is different. Who knows? Like what you say, Susie, whatever they've been exposed to, whatever, it could be anything that they could have come in with, or that's been created through a stressful environment, or being overfed something, or drinking toxic water. Who knows where these sensitivities, quote unquote, come from, all these allergic reactions. But it's just observing, being present, observing, asking the question. If your dog's body is creating hotspots on it, okay, is this food? Is it its environment? Is it emotional? And this is where I love some of the tools because this is the whole food subject is a massive topic in the classes, because so many people have questions about it. We've been told so many conflicting points of view, and we're trying to, without knowing how to tune into your animal's body, we do go to a vet, we do research on the internet, we do read books, and we try and do the right thing by our pets. But really, for me, one of the greatest gifts is, like you say, Susie, being able to really tune in, be present with your animal, observe their behavior, watch their body language, watch what they do with their food. Are they running for grass within an hour or two of eating something? It's just the signs will be there, and the ability to ask the question and ask the body is such a gift, because it helps you fine tune and also shortcut what could be a really lengthy process with every time they eat a meal. So, but you have to be like you did with that reset, Susie. It's like, okay, let's take everything out and reintroduce it, give the entire body a rest for a while, and then reintroduce something, one thing at a time, because then you start to get more clarity on, okay, well, fish didn't agree with them, or beef didn't work, or maybe that chicken neck didn't work. So it's just, it can be a bit of a journey. And with the tools, with the ability to ask the question, and the animal realizes that you're actually trying to facilitate them, or, try and make more ease for their body, they'll work with you as well. The more you reach into their world, they'll feel received in a way maybe that they haven't been before. And they'll hopefully start to show you with, a bit more awareness on your behalf as to what works and what doesn't work. So great conversation. Like I say, this is a really big topic. So what else is possible for you with your dogs and food? And if they like a corner off your piece of toast in the morning, then let them enjoy it. That's my dog.
Exactly.
Got to save a
I
little
love
tiny crust just so she can crunch on it in her bowl.
it.
Thank you, Susie.
Thank you, Viv. That was really fun. And thank you all for being here and watching this. And hopefully, you got a little bit out of it. And hopefully I didn't offend you too much with all my...
Oh, and if I could just do a quick plug, October is Talk to the Animals month. So We've got a whole variety of goodies coming up. If you are new to Talk to the Animals or new to the Tools of Access Consciousness, there's some free stuff happening. There's some very inexpensive classes happening. There's some 2.5-day and an advanced class coming up, Susie and I, at the end of October. So if you would like to know more, go to talktotheanimals.com and you'll find everything on there.
Cool. Thanks,
Thank you, my friend.
everybody. Thank you. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.